I really injected myself. I managed to get onto the platform for delegates that were there physically. I couldn't make it physically, and I don't think you need an invite per se to participate in any of the national dialogue activities. So I'm on the platform, I'm engaging with people who were there physically, and this thing, I did not hack anything. The information was broadcast on TV, so I'm in there as if I was there. I haven't got a attendee badge that maybe I'll show you. I'll put it here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the On the Country podcast.
Am I allowed to swear there?
Yeah, I know we said let's not blame the government.
It's just sad when we start them becoming indoctrinated. No view on me.
Hi guys, I'm Emilio, Tobias, and welcome back to another episode of the On the Country podcast. The national dialogue, I'm gonna do videos on the national dialogue quite often. I'm very enthusiastic and optimistic about the thing. Even though there's gonna be things that's gonna go left, there's things that's gonna go right with this whole process. That is fine. It's important for those of us who are interested and want to participate and think this is an important thing to stay focused and not to get demotivated to participate and push through, man. If this thing is truly a citizen-led process, we can expect for a lot of hiccups to happen in the process of trying to find each other and finding mechanisms that everyone's voice will be heard and that everyone will be able to see for themselves where this thing is going. So they had the day 2 session. I gave an overview of day 1. The day 2 session seemed all over the place. I had to scrub through it. I did not watch the whole thing, but I caught glimpses where everyone was given a chance to speak. Like I imagined or presumed the next day would be, it did really feel like a filler. And as much as people got to speak their views and people were energetic, I don't think the substance of the conversations that were had there is what should inform or should steer the public's desire for the different topics that are there. Let's go and see how it went.
The 2-day national convention, which drew more than 1,000 delegates from over 200 organizations, wrapped up in Tshwane, Gauteng yesterday. Convened by President Cyril Ramaphosa, the gathering was set to be the launch of a citizen-driven national dialogue aimed at confronting South Africa's many challenges, including unemployment, crime, corruption, health, and education. Delegates hailed it as a moment for ordinary people to take charge of the country's direction. But beyond the rhetoric, the question now is whether the dialogue will deliver real change. For more on this, we're joined by Boitshoko Ditlake, the chairperson of the Convention Organizing Committee. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Ditlake. I really do appreciate it.
Chairperson, he's the chairperson.
Would you say that the convention was a success? I asked that in context and to the backdrop of the withdrawal of the legacy foundations that said it was rushed.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. The convention was a resounding success. Over 1,000 delegates across the length and breadth of our republic responded to the call. And they indeed started the dialogue by reflecting on critical issues, even redefining how they see the dialogue unlock going forward. And I think it was a resounding success. The withdrawal of the foundations, as you said, I believe assisted South Africans to actually respond to the call and ensure that they take ownership of the process, and they indeed did over the past 2 days.
I'll agree with you. The 2-day thing with the hiccups, with the delays, with the figuring out on the spot, finding the mistakes, finding the teething issues, I believe it was a resounding success, especially if you believe or if they made it clear to themselves that the point of this thing was to get the ball rolling. Nothing real impactful or real in substance or value was going to come from this weekend, except the fact that it was a launch. Even the conversations and the discussions that I brought up there about anything and everything is not really going to factor into the main conversation, because we as the people, as civilians, as citizens, are the ones that's going to put the topics forward. So I think it's true that all the foundations pulling out might have made some despondent, but a lot of us saw that as a sign that, yes, let these as many organizations and these high up people are not there, it makes it less likely to be influenced by a select few. So the less of them that were there, it helped us maybe even feel more confident that, like, yo man, we can inject ourselves. And I really injected myself. I managed to get onto the platform for delegates that were there physically. I couldn't make it physically, and I don't think you need an invite per se to participate in any of the national dialogue activities. So I'm on the platform, I'm engaging with people who were there physically, and this thing, I did not hack anything. The information was broadcast on TV. So I'm in there as if I was there. I haven't got a attendee badge that maybe I'll show you. I'll put it here. So was it a resounding success for what it was intended to be? And for those of us who might have overestimated what that thing would be or misunderstood it, might not think so. But I think it was a resounding success for what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be messy.
There were moments during the convention where it felt like this was being figured out on the spot, on the fly, especially around some of the teething issues, around what the house rules ought to be, how the process should go. I mean, on day one, the program didn't quite start on time. Talk to us about what some of the key problems were that the convention faced and how it addressed them.
It was a very mammoth task to be undertaken, and especially in the period that we did. There were some teething logistical challenges, which the team worked around the clock to resolve, and they indeed resolved. You'll recall that some of the delegates arrived in the morning of the convention, but they indeed participated. The spirits were very high. There were also some of the issues which emerged in the middle of the convention, but to me, these represent the commitment by South Africans to ensure that their voice should be heard and that it should be citizen-led. And I think that expression was more so resounding throughout the 2 days of the convention.
What were the logistical problems that the convention organizing committee faced?
As I've indicated, some delegates arrived late, not late, they arrived in the morning, and they chose.
Yeah, some people had to leave. The lady who mentioned that she left Mpumalanga at 3, 4 a.m. to either pick up points. There were people complaining on the app that pickup points were not communicated on time. There were pickup points at Bara, at different spots in Soweto, so you can only imagine where else the pickup points were. And maybe that might have just been a thing for Gauteng and maybe the provinces that don't necessarily have airports that would fly to our Tambo. But I do wonder, it hasn't been mentioned, that the people from Cape Town, Northwest, KZN, did they fly in the day before?
Not to even go to their accommodation, but to head straight to the convention, which enabled us to start not too much late, but to enable us to meet the obligations as outlined in the program.
Yeah,
those were the key. The logistics were the key, and the team was able to respond to them.
Yeah. Early in the week, I had interviewed one of the organizing committee spokespeople, Anzio Jacobs, and yet indicated that the budget for the first national convention was set at around 20 million rand. Were there cost overruns?
I don't believe there were cost overruns.
20 million, 20 million. Must remember that number. Because sometimes we think of 700 million in a manner that we should not be looking at it. Maybe the 700 million is decent. Let's see, 20, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 divided by, there were 1,200 people there. 16,000 per person, and this might include travel and accommodation for two days, flights, but some people went with buses. Flights, how much? 5K for flights per person, another 5K, no, let's not say 5K, government works on 1,400, let's say maybe 1,600 per night accommodation, so there's 3,000, that's 8,000 for travel and accommodation, another 8,000, security, branding materials. No, 20 million is too much, Buffet. 20 million is too much. You didn't pay for venue. Food, 8,000 for food. What else was happening there? The placards. Where did we get the? Did they do their own? Did they do their own TV feed? They didn't have to do a lot of AV because I'm sure that auditorium they already has. Okay, cool. 20 million budget. So how much they budgeted? So it probably came in less, and they'll probably make public how much those things cost. But 16,000. That's 16,000 per attendee, and if we 20, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, divided by 1,000, which was the intended amount of people to be there, that's 20,000 per person. Interesting. And how much are the special people being, the prominent people, what do they call those things? The prominent, what do they call them? I'm not calling the people things. Are they being paid for their time? Are they being paid a day rate? The same way boards get paid? Is that where a lot of the money is coming from? Were these delegates paid like a stipend of sorts? Like what they call that thing? Per diem. Interesting questions. Those things must start coming out. And it's for Parliament and I guess political parties to interrogate those things on that level. But as far as the conversation and the substance of this thing, let us decide the topics, not those people there. There were like 11 topics suggested, which kind of formed the subcommittees that would be formed, and some things were joined together, some things were expanded on, some things were broken apart. But I think over the next 2 weeks, steering committee to be selected in 2 weeks. Over the next 2 weeks, they're going to be firming up what those subcommittees are, the descriptions, and all the things that fall under it. 20,000 per delegate. No, Buffet, it's too much.
Remember, this convention was supported both by the contribution from the government and the private sector or ordinary South Africans. I don't think we went overrun. We are currently compiling the expenditure and the cost. We indeed did not go over the budget. We met the budget, otherwise we would have experienced challenges along the way. We will present that consolidated report to the newly elected steering committee in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and one of the issues around the steering committee was that all the tracks, there were 22, had to go and nominate, all the sectoral tracks had to go and nominate a representative that would form part of this. And there were some organizations that said, well, the sectoral tracks that have been identified here don't quite fit where we fall. One of them being, for instance, the community of Rastafarians in South Africa, 3 million of them who don't feel that they ordinarily fit into religious organizations or traditional leaders or any of those neatly defined categories. How did the convention address those questions of the uncategorized, so to speak?
Remember, the main purpose of this process is to ensure that it's owned by all South Africans. we had to expand the sectoral formations. You'll recall that during that consultation that you referred to, when various sectors went to consult, there was a big group which remained in the plenary, and they were all happy because some sectoral formations were constituted during the course of the conference, and those will be announced during the course of the week as soon as we have consolidated those reports.
Yeah. Importantly here, Mr. Boichogo, is the question.
Another thing, and maybe I'm biased in the fact that I noticed this. The Rastafarian guys, one issue that they had, because I think there were 4 of them that were invited as a delegation, and I think they were included in the multi-religious prayer opening session. One issue that the Rasta guys had was that the 4 of them were put into the same team to discuss separate things, and that shows a little foresight, and I think maybe they objected to it and they got it right to be put into separate groups so that the Rastafarian agenda or sentiment can have impact on as many sectors as possible. Don't just put them in one group to discuss one thing, but they have views on multiple things. A group that protested either outside the university or outside the union buildings, and I think they are still there, living by the Mandela statue at the union buildings, are the Khoi and San people who, unless I got it wrong, they aren't recognized in many, if not all, capacities. The kings and queens don't have is dominion the word? They're not recognized by the government the same way the Zulu king and Xhosa kings are recognized. And so none of the leaders from the Khoi and San communities were ever invited. And I think that is a question for, let alone colored people. I'm not talking about colored people, I'm talking about the Khoi and San, about where they fall in this country. So these hiccups, not there to discredit the process, but these hiccups are there to adjust along the way so that once we get moving, everyone is there, we know where we are going. And once again, this dialogue is not supposed to be about fixing problems. It's not about speaking about the actual problem, and we can, but I think the dialogue, the outcome of the dialogue is to get to a consensus on our attitude towards these problems. Because these problems will arise, they'll come, they'll go. Race might be a big issue one day, and the next day unemployment might be a big issue, then the next day GBV might be the biggest issue. But what we do need to decide is, what is our attitude as a country? What do we stand for? What don't we stand for? What is our primary goal and idea of where we're going? And what of those things are secondary and tertiary for the greater good? And that's my view of what the outcome and the direction of this dialogue should be. Let's not talk about, unemployment is the reason for gangsterism, unemployment is the reason for crime, unemployment is the reason for social ills. We all know this. We need to decide what is our vibe, what are we deciding.
Question around what comes after the fact of the nomination of the steering committee. What will be the very specific powers and duties of the steering committee?
Yes, there is a document which was also circulated during the convention, which was presented as well. The idea was that that is a framework, a document for discussions. We have given the participants and the sectors about 2 weeks, in the first instance, to select and democratically identify their representatives to be advanced to the steering committee. But secondly, to strengthen the framework document which guides the roles and responsibility. Remember, as a steering committee, it is responsible to steer and ensure that the South Africans remain engaged over the next 6 to 7 months during this process. They are the leadership. It is a citizen-led process, and they have to guarantee that it remains in that spirit.
Yeah. What were some of the most pressing issues that were raised from the floor around what's some of the high priority agenda?
Before that, what is the steering committee going to be able to do? Because steering committees generally have authority. It's a group of, it's a multidisciplinary task team of sorts. They able to make decisions about spending. They can approve payments. They can approve, generally, they can approve deviations in scope, deviations in contracts. So the steering committee, what power do they have? Are they more powerful than is there a board? Because this guy is a chairperson. Are they more powerful than that committee? Or do they work in conjunction when things need to be set up now? Are they going to, because the budgeting process is not finished, at least as the steering committee is able to interrogate, make contributions, and vote on aspects of the budget, or at least have a big influence on what that should be, and whoever has now the power to sign off or approve the final thing and make the final payment. Those types of things we'll see on that document. I didn't know that they were going to talk about the document.
Agenda items of the national dialogue ought to be that was raised by the organizations and delegates represented there?
You will recall that the convention was not intended to discuss the deep issues. The convention was designed to look into the processes. We, however, indeed discuss some of the key issues purely as a purpose of testing the methodology which are going to be unfolded as we go along the process. However, in that sense, some of the key issues emerged, for example, quality education, land reform, and agrarian reform, unemployment, and especially for the youth, and many other critical issues that various sectors of South Africa are confronted with, which included the economy.
Yeah. And just lastly, what will be the process over the next 2 weeks? How are the sectors and sector representatives meant to engage, and what is the process through which they will submit their nominee? And if there are any objections, how will the convention deal with the objections?
We have given the sectors a framework in which they have to follow. One, they have to engage with their sectors. They have already given us the names of their conveners. If they need help, they will be able to call upon us. There is a special email which has been established to facilitate that process.
Okay. So we have about 2 weeks before anything major is going to happen in the space. And that's cool, and that's good and all that. But for now, let's start thinking about what we want to be in that thing. Because that steering committee and those heads of each of the topics or subcommittees, they're not going to tell us as civilians, as citizens, they're not going to tell us what the issues are or what the topics of discussion is. It's for them to go out and engage people and hear back from that thing. Because the names and the titles of those topics or subcommittees can still be changed, can still be influenced, and you might find, and I hope they're not locking the doors and shutting down things, especially after the first period of public consultations on a mass scale, that there might still be changes, additions, or subtractions from those things. We must be able to give input into what we want to see at the end. I think Cyril has already put it, and there's no contestation about the end result being a social compact. What is government's responsibility? What are people's responsibility? What is business responsibility? But we must also make decisions about our attitude, who we are, what our priorities are. Yeah, man, I'm excited about the national dialogue. Don't let the small hiccups and hurdles make you despondent. Don't jump on people who are trying to score political points by invalidating this thing. Let's do something as one country for once. Then we'll all go back to our political parties or the people we support and then push on a political level the things we want to be prioritized. But as far as people are concerned, let's get together, black, white, Indian, colored, able, disabled, male, female, rich, middle, poor. All of us, let's participate in this thing and have an understanding of who and what we are as one. We've needed to rewrite this thing and reconsolidate this thing for a long time. That's all from me. I'm Emilio, Tobias, and this is the On the Contrary podcast. Thank you. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the On the Contrary podcast. Am I allowed to swear there? Yes, swear.
Yeah, I know he said let's not blame the government.
It's just sad when we start then becoming indoctrinated. Your view on me.